Thank you for joining today's webinar. My name is Randy Walker, and I'm a Solutions Engineer here at Satori Software. Please feel free to use the box on the right-hand side of your screen to send any questions to me at any time throughout the webinar. I'll do my best to answer your questions either during or after the webinar has concluded. Let's take a quick look at today's schedule. Our goal here is to really focus in on key terminology, a side-by-side comparison, and how to use bulk mailer to meet full service requirements. Again, full service will be a requirement for automation mailings beginning January 26th. Here's a side-by-side comparison of some key terminology. For an example, a job in PostalSoft is referred to as a mailing in bulk mailer. I'm not going to go through all of these, however, I will refer back to these throughout the demonstration. In bulk mailer, all of the jobs are referred to as mailings and are visible directly on the home screen. So instead of opening a job in PostalSoft, you'll simply double-click on a specific mailing in bulk mailer that you want to work with. You also have the option to create a new mailing here as well. Bulk mailer refers to field mapping during the import process. On the left, you can see the bulk mailer screen where you will use a visual chain link icon to display the map fields that you want to map with on the left to on the right. On the right side of the screen, you're familiar with the PostalSoft, which uses those lines to link the fields together visually. Transitioning from bulk mailer in regards to address correction settings should be relatively simple, as the options here are very similar between the two products. DPV, LaxLink, and SweetLink are industry standards for CAS and are performed with bulk mailer by default. All of the other settings for address corrections can be found here as well, including casing, dual address preferences, suffixes, unit designators, etc., etc. Presort functionality between PostalSoft and bulk mailer uses a step-by-step approach to selecting the appropriate options for a mailing. Satori's Presort is very intuitive and guides you through the step-by-step process and keeps you in compliance with the DMM regulations. I will also be spending extra time here explaining how to utilize our product in order to meet the full service requirements. Here's a quick look at one of our reports that we generate. As you can see on the left, Satori's reporting engine produces easy-to-read PDFs. Lastly, I wanted to give you a quick look at the label designer in bulk mailer. As with PostalSoft Desktop, you get an easy-to-use visual editor to design your labels and print directly on mail pieces. The purpose of showing you side-by-side screenshots is to help get you comfortable with the transition from PostalSoft to bulk mailer. Although different, all of the core elements are there, and it's just a simple matter of learning how to do the things in bulk mailer that you're used to doing in PostalSoft. And now for the demonstration. I wanted to take a second and familiarize everyone with the bulk mailer home screen. On here, there's a lot of useful information, and only on the home screen are you working with actual files. Every other section down the left of the navigation bar are templates that can be applied to any file you have. So this middle screen here are what we call mailings. So you have various mailings here. You can open a mailing just by simply double-clicking on it. You'll see down here in the data details, it will reflect what mailing you have open, what your total count is, what your group is, and what the current count is that you're working with at any time. And so a group in bulk mailer is referred to as a filter within your desktop product. Down here, this is how you're going to come back and you can reprint reports at any time. You'll see that right here, this report was done at 7:16, 2 people had moved. And so all you have to do is click on the reprint reports, and it'll bring up a history for the reports that you are going to generate. I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through this. This section right here are virtual folders that you can use to keep yourself organized. And you'll see here, I'm just under my mailings right now. I have 3 mailings. If I go to the archive, you'll see I have a bunch more mailings, and I can design this in order to have all my customer lists here, and then I can keep a nice archived view and easily access those customers' mailings that I've done in the past. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to close this mailing, and I'm going to start out by walking through PostalSoft and how you can create a mailing. I'm sure you're familiar with how to do that. And then go through the navigation bar to complete a mailing here, including FullService. Okay, so here's PostalSoft Business Edition. And the way that you get started here is you can either go up to File, New, or open a mailing on the right-hand side there. So I'm just going to go New, and I'm going to call this Webinar. Click Next. I'm going to leave the standard fields here as well. I'm not going to move anything. I'm just going to go ahead and click Finish. So I didn't alter any of the lengths of the fields or anything here. So the next thing I'm going to do, as you're familiar with, is import data into this file. I'm not going to spend a lot of time in PostalSoft. I just kind of want to go through and show you how this is done in PostalSoft and then refer that back to bulk mailer. So I'm going to open up the same list in both. I'm going to go grab a comma delimited demo list, and I'll walk through the steps to create that. Okay, so here's that visual mapping, and I know that city is not address 1. Let me just map these real quick. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and finish this. I get a truncation error because I didn't have a long enough field probably for the company name. So I'm just going to go ahead and say OK. You can see it's imported those 2011 records. They're all right there. Okay, now let's see how to do this in bulk mailer. So in bulk mailer, the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to get started by double-clicking on the new mailing wizard. This will be a familiar welcome screen. Most of the wizards have this welcome screen associated with them. The second screen here gives you the option to either create just a blank mailing file and then import records in, or I could create a new file and then also use one of the import templates to load a plan, as you're familiar with, or load the information. However, I'm going to keep this step by step and just create a blank mailing file and then show you under the import section the import templates that I could use to apply to this mailing. I'll just leave it with the default date and time stamp and finish. Okay, so you see it added another line item here under the home screen. Down here in this data details, which is very important, it's going to show you at any time what file you're working with, what the total count in the record is, what group you have applied, or a filter as in PostalSoft, and what the current count is. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the import-export section, and I'm going to import records into this new mailing that I have just created. So I could use, again, one of these templates. Anything from here on out are templates, again, that can be applied to a mailing, or what you're used to as loading a plan or loading information. So I'm just going to double-click on the import wizard and create a new one right here. I'm going to click past the welcome screen, and I'm going to select the file to import. So in the PostalSoft example, I used the comma delimited demo list. However, I did want to point out that we can import in multiple different file formats, including your existing PostalSoft DBase files. So I can select a DBase here. I'm only going to see the DBase when I select it. And you'll see I have 2 PostalSoft files here I could import. However, I'm going to go back and just select that comma demo list that I imported into PostalSoft. So I'm going to go ahead and click Next here. It's given me kind of a raw preview of the data and how it is going to be reconciled as we import the data. You can see here now it starts to line it up in columns. It's selected that it's a comma delimited with double quotes, If I had a header row here, so instead of this John Hera, if this said first name, last name, business, I could select this first row contains field names, and then on the next screen, it's going to use those field names to try to intuitively map the fields. I'm going to go ahead and click Next here, and you'll see our mapping screen. So this is just a simple, you just match the fields up, you hit Map, and you'll see that there's a chain link icon here. If I hover over any one of these fields, you'll see the first 15 records in that column, and so you can be assured that maybe this is last name. So I can go ahead and select last name and click Map. Same thing with business. I'll find the appropriate fields for business. And you can map as many or as little fields here as you'd like. So if you had extra information that isn't part of your address file, such as maybe an account number or something to that effect, what you can do is you can map those to our user-defined fields. Down here are user text fields, and so if I had any other information, I could put them into our user text fields. It's only showing 5 right there, but I have this show all fields. If I click on that, you'll notice I get a bunch of extra information. So, such as if I had a piece weight and thickness, if I was doing invoicing or something, I could map in what the thickness and weight of each piece is. But more importantly, you can see I've got a whole bunch more user text fields available to me. So now that I've mapped the fields, and you can see over here on the source that it's telling me what columns have been mapped to what, I'm just going to go ahead and click Next. So now I have the option to save this as a new template or a plan. I'm going to go ahead and just call it Webinar, and then Finish. At this point, you'll notice I didn't get any truncation errors, and I wanted to take a second and talk about that. During the file creation process within Bulk Mailer, we'll set default field lengths for you, and then if any of the data that you're importing into the columns that you specified, if it is going to truncate it, it will auto-expand that field in order to preserve your data. So you won't have to worry about guessing how long field lengths are anymore. We take care of that for you behind the scenes and to avoid any of the truncation that may occur. The export section here, I wanted just to take a mention on that. It works exactly like the import section does, except for it's exactly opposite. You're going to export out in various different file formats, including DBase. I can also go through the import wizard again, and I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick for you. And I'm going to import another file in here. So I can import multiple files. In this one, I'm going to import a DBase file and show you how you can import in existing Postal Soft files here. So I've selected the DBase, and I'm going to go ahead and click Next. You'll see that it already has linked up the fields because the first row or the column headers in the DBase corresponded with column headers in Bulk Mailer. So I'm going to go ahead and click Next. I can save this as a new template if I would like. However, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go ahead and import the records. So I've imported another 2010 records, and you can see down here in the bottom it has populated with the 2010. One second, please. Okay, just had to answer a question. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what those records look like. So I'm going to go to our View section. As you're used to in Postal Soft, you can see the records right there on the front screen. Well, in ours, you'll just come in here and you can see the records in an Excel spreadsheet, or you can look at it in a detail view on the record view like you're used to. And real quick, I had a question if you can input a last line. Absolutely. So you can have city, state, and zip in one field, and it will import it in as well. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the listing, show you here. You can make any edits here if you'd like. Maybe if I wanted to edit a record, I could come in here and do that. We also have some advanced options up here. I can do some finds. I can do mass edit records and edit records as I'm on an entire list. and go through that. So the next thing I'm going to do is go to the address quality section, and I'm going to talk about the address correction, how the options correspond with Postal Soft. But at this time, I'm going to go back into Postal Soft, and I'm going to do the same thing. So in here, you would click on the correct records. It's going to ask me to back up the file. I'm just going to go ahead and say no. And you'll see how you have all these options here. If I click yes or OK, it will go ahead and correct all the records. Well, in bulk mailer, it's very similar. Let me go back there. We have the address correction option right here. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And you'll see all of the options here on one screen. We have the ability to use internet-based processing, so you can ensure that you're using the latest data files that we have available. We have a hosted data center that will allow you to correct in a real-time data stream. Dual address preference, all of the various information here. You can do geocoding. You can look up RDI information. You can do any of your format, casing, all of that information here. However, what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to cancel this, and I'm going to show you our integrated 48-month NCOA link database. So back in Postal Soft, rather than going up to your records or your tools and services, extended services, where you would FTP these files out to a Lorton or a Peachtree to have additional data services done to it. Within bulk mailer, you're going to click on this Move Update, and it's an automated real-time NCOA, which also applies all of the address correction to it. So you can skip doing the address correction if you're going to apply a Move Update or use the NCOA link database to satisfy the full service requirements from the post office, and do it all within a real-time stream. And I'll show you that here. So I'm going to select my magic logic here, or my matching logic, after I've logged in. And this business, individual, and family will cover everything, or I can limit it down to specific targeted elements such as business only or individual. If I have multiple names on a single record, such as Jane and John Doe, or Jane Doe and John Smith, I can select how I want to search for moves there, if I want to do it on a family level or an individual level. We are a full service provider of the NCOA data, so it'll go back a full 48 months. Class of mailing, you can specifically say what class of mailing you're going for, or all will cover all. In a production environment, I would skip and automatically accept all the moves. However, for this demonstration, I'm going to review those moves and show you what that looks like. Here are your address correction options. Again, CAS, BPV, LaxLink, and SweetLink are all applied during the move update process. So here's how I'm going to define how I want those records formatted on the return. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this and show you how fast it goes through 4,020 records in a real-time process. And as that's going, I'm going to look at some of these questions and see if I can answer some of those. Is there a limit to the number of fields that we may define? We have a daily job that has about 60 fields. And in that, no. Bulk mailer has a couple of different versions. Right now you're seeing the professional version. This has 15 user-defined fields. In the case where you'll have 60 or more than 15, we have bulk mailer business, which will allow you to import up to 255 fields. And it is also client-server based. So it's done with the address correction. We're at the review window here. You can see that the old address is here after it has applied all of the address correction processes. And then the new address that came back is showing me that it's a business move on 11/2010 and the name of the business. So you'll see I have 36 moves here. I can accept one by one, or I'm just going to go ahead and accept all. And so it ran through the address correction on 4,000 records in 30 seconds. So I'm going to go ahead and preview the report. I can print it or save it as a PDF. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and preview it. So here's the CAS summary report. This report is the 3553 that is required to do automation mailings and will continue to be required for full service. But then here's your proof that you ran it through the NCOA link. So here's your processing summary report. It has all of your totals down here and some of the elements, or you can look down and see what has been done on a summary level. So again, I can save that as a PDF. I can print it or preview. So I'm going to go ahead and say close. And now at this point, I'm going to go ahead and go into the duplication search and show you how that works versus the way that it works in Postal Soft, where you can come in and find duplicates here. You can import multiple lists, which I've already imported multiple lists, and then find how you're going to search for matching through Postal Soft. The way that bulk mailer does it, we have two sections. We have the duplication search, which will allow you to look through the records that are in your data details down here, your total count, your current count. Or you can use the merge purge, which I'm not going to get into the merge purge today. However, that's how you can import multiple lists, do an inclusion and an exclusion, and search for duplicates in a more robust way rather than doing a duplication search that's going to do everything on one list. However, you can get into some advanced searches here by understanding how our duplication search works, and I will try to explain that in detail as we go through here. So you'll see here our templates, or again, how you can load info or load a plan. I'm going to go ahead and just use this demo one and click next. I can make edits to this as I go along. So here I can use the zip code, maybe ignore the +4. Any of the elements I want to use to search for, I'll just check the box, use either exact, medium, or loose for the matching on the SoundX. I can use up to 4 additional fields in order to map or match with. So I can come in here, I can select any of the fields that are available in bulk mailer to also define as my criteria for matching. This screen right here is very important. This is how you can do some advanced search and sorting here. So you'll see sort records by creation date, oldest first or newest first. Well, in today's demonstration, what I've done is I've imported 2 lists in. When you import records into the bulk mailer, it's going to give it a date and a timestamp. So this is how I can import multiple lists and do a duplication search against them, and then either keep the first list that I imported in or keep the last list that I imported in. And that's how you can set priorities here. Or if I was in the view section and I made some edits to the records, I could use the modified date in order to give preference to which record I wanted to save. Group action, I can delete the records out of the list, or I can mark them in order to use the groups, or what you're used to as filters, in order to single those records out and do some action on it. The delete records doesn't actually delete the records permanently. We have a way to recover those. Up here in the file menu, there's a file, work with deleted records. And then here is the action, apply action to. All but first record and group will purge out any subsequent duplicates and just keep one unique for each duplicate it's found. I can remove all of the duplicates that it found and just have none of the duplicate records that it found, or only the first one and keep in any subsequent duplicates it's found after that. So I'm going to go ahead and keep the first record that it finds in the group, and I'll just use demo and click finish. At this point, it's going to search through the records, and look at that, it found 209 duplicates. It's because I imported the same list in twice in 2 different formats. So you can see one group can have 2 or more records in it at a time. So I can either process this group, I can skip it, I can process all of the duplicates, or I can cancel. So I'm just going to go ahead and process this one and show you that it's going to find these duplicates. I have this check mark. If maybe I wanted to keep those records, I could uncheck that, and then it would not delete that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to process all these records and get them out of my list. So it's deleted those records. I'm going to go ahead and close that. Before I move on here, again, I'm going to skip over the merge purge. We have data services built directly into bulk mailer as well. So as you're used to going into the Lorton or the Peachtree and doing a lookup for maybe a walk sequence append, your DSF squared, or any additional services, you can do that again directly through bulk mailer by clicking on the data services. And in here there is a few different ways that you can look up for processes. So I'm going to go ahead and click next here. I'm going to log in. I'm not going to actually process through here. I just wanted to show you the services that you have available. So you have head of householding, apartment number, ECOA, which is an enhanced change of address. So it's going to look at data sets outside of the NCOA link, such as newspaper, magazine subscriptions, utility bills. And again, we have the walk sequence append here, but you can apply and get your walk sequence numbers, as well as a suppression suite. Our suppression suite includes the do not mail registry, deceased person, and correctional facility. So you can look up to make sure that your list is as clean as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and close that and move on. The next thing I wanted to talk about is groups. And so groups is how you would do in PostalSoft your records select. And you would select criteria. Here, let me go back to PostalSoft real quick. And so up here you have your records select, and you can do by criteria, all records. So you have your various different ways that you can select records, which is what we call groups in bulk mailer. So at this point, I'm just going to go right back into bulk mailer, and I'm going to talk a little bit about groups. So we have these predefined groups, all active records, all corrected records, which will give you any of the records that passed address correction. We have deleted records, so I could come back in and I could focus on just those records that were deleted. This all deliverable records, that's a unique group that essentially will get every record that we feel is a deliverable address. So it's going to exclude any of the ones that have been found as a move, but the move could not be returned for whatever reason. Maybe the delivery point, the DPV vacant field, indicates that it's a vacant address. It will exclude those out as well. I could focus in on the all move update records, and that way then I could grab the all update records and export those out of bulk mailer and update my data source maybe if I have to. I got my all in deliverable. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open up this group wizard. Here's kind of like our by criteria, and I can add conditions. And so here I can select any of the fields. I can do a comparison on it. So this is very similar to what you're used to in PostalSoft. So I could define my own. I can use a predefined. I can do data sampling. So here I can select and maybe just grab random records at a number or percentage of the mailing, and I can grab records consecutively at a record position. Geocode, if I applied geocoding to this list, I could define coordinates and then get within a range, not within a range, or between specific points on a geocode. And so I'm going to go ahead and just add a criteria real quick. First name equals Randy. I doubt there's any Randys in this list. However, I'm not going to group by this. I just want to show you what the rest of this looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and click Next. So now I can sort the records up by 4 ways. So I can do it by record number, any of the fields. One that's most common that I find is the sort position. I use the sort position in order to the pre-sort position, so you can keep your list in a pre-sorted fashion. Maybe just any of the fields you can use and define it by order, ascending or descending. And again, if I wanted to, I could save this as a new template, and then that way I could load the plan, as you're familiar with, later in order to keep this and not have to recreate it each time. So in this case, let me just double-click on this Move Update Records, and you can see there are 20 records that have been selected by this group. I'm going to go ahead and make those active. Down here in this Data Details, you'll see that the current count is only 20. That's because I've selected the group or the filter that's going to only grab me those Move Update records, and then I could do some action with them. So I could go back to the Import-Export section, export out the Move Update records, and that way I can update my data source with it or report back. I could view those records, see who's actually moved, and what type of move they were as well. So back to the groups, I'm going to go ahead and double-click on the All Active Records, which is going to bring up my total 2009 records, and say yes. And at this point, I'm going to go into the mail sort and spend some time in there showing you how you can make bulk mailer become full service compliant in order to continue to get your discounts after January. Let me close this down, go into your sort by mailing here. I can select the records and say OK. So as you're familiar, here's the way that you do it through bulk mailer. I have a predefined load piece. I'm going to go ahead and load that. I'll click Next. And you'll see how you have all your options. I'm sure this is very familiar to you. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into bulk mailer, go to our mail sort section, and show you how to create mail sort templates that are full service compliant. So I have some predefined templates here. And again, these are ones that I can create and then use over and over and over again on any list that I have open. So I'm going to start by double-clicking on the Mail Sort Wizard and defining my own template here on the fly. So we have everything from first-class mail, periodicals, standard mail, even some package services available. And if I'm not sure if I'm a letter or a flat, we do give you the option over here on the side to look and see what the specifications are for a letter, for a flat, and ensure that I'm sorting the right type of sort for the mail piece that I'm generating. So now I get the mail piece information. I can go ahead and enter in the information for this specific mailing I'm doing. If I had a mixed weight where I'm importing in the piece weight and thickness, I could select that option, and it will produce a manifest report at the end as well. So I'm going to go ahead and just make this a 1 ounce, 0.2, continue on. Essentially, that's a standard letter. And now we get to the mailing and permit information screen. Here is one of the sections that you're going to become familiar with as you transition to bulk mailer. You're going to enter in your mail drop zip code, where you're going to drop the mail for the issuing post office of your permit. The mailing date, you can select a different date in the future if you'd like. However, down here in the mail permit section, here is a very important part in order to put in the information you need for full service. So I'm just going to double click on one that I have already existing. And I'm going to go ahead and click Next on this welcome screen and kind of go through these settings. So here is the role in mailing. So in this one, I am the mail owner. However, in the case that I'd be a mail agent, you would click the mail agent and then select the appropriate options for that. So if you're mailing on other people's behalf, you can select either your permit, the owner's permit, or a third party. I'm going to just go ahead and mail owner on this one, put in the information that I need. If you have a CAPS account, you can put that information in here. Select what type of permit this is, and continue on. So now here is the permit information. You'll enter in the permit for what you're going to use for this mailing. For full service, you'll have to enter in this mailer ID. So you can enter in your mailer ID. If you have multiple mailer IDs, you can put them in here. You have your IMB Tracing capable or compatible. The sequence number range, if you wanted to define your own sequence ranges, you could do that there. And I'm going to explain that a little bit more on the full service section as we go through this mailing. And so the secondary permit, if I had a secondary permit, I can enter that information in here. and then save this as a new or existing permit if I had to enter that information. So I'm going to go ahead and finish that. And then if I needed to create, if I was the mail agent and I needed to create this permit for another company, I could just simply right-click on it, duplicate the mailing permit, and it would go through with all of the settings that are already in there. And I could just put in agent, make my company, come in and put in the mailing agent's information, the mailer ID. The customer registration is here as well. So you put in your CRID and your MID, click next, and then I'd put in the mail owner's information if they had a ghost number, their CRID, their MID. You'd put all that information in here on an individual client basis. And so that's a quick way that you can come through. It's going to tell me I need to enter information here. But this is a quick way where you can duplicate a permit and enter in your client's information here. Rather than have to recreate the wheel each time, you can create one permit and then duplicate that for each subsequent client that you mail for. Since I'm the owner on this one, I'm just going to go ahead and click next. And now we get to the mail.dat or the eDocs information. Here is another critical part in order to become full service compliant. So you're going to make sure that you enter in your license code. If you do not have a license code, Satori software can issue one of those. We've purchased a large block of ID Alliance codes, and so we can get you a code for there at no charge. So you'll enter in your information here for that. We also stay up on the current version of the mail.dat files, 13.1. There's a 14.1 that's out now, and the new update has 14.1 included in it. You'll notice that the piece records are grayed out. For full service, they're required. I'm giving out either one or the other. 13.1, I have the option to choose which one I want to do. So I'll do the piece detail record and click next. Here's the level of sorts. So this is, again, like you're used to, it's kind of a drip system. It will allow you to try for carrier route walk sequence. Any pieces that do not enter, or I should say any of the pieces that don't qualify for the first level will drop down to the second level, and then again the third level. Advanced options, we have the sorting options here, which is where you can come in and you can define things such as break mark. You can tray, you could do it by zip order, unsorted pieces. So again, here's some of the advanced options that you can come in and use, such as your endorsement line. You're going to print on all pieces and such. Trays, you can define specifically what type of trays you're going to use. 1 foot and 2 foot is what's by default for this mailing. Palletization. If you needed to palletize your mail, which is required for full service, if you meet the minimum for a DMM pallet, this is where you'll come in and you'll put in the minimums for that. I believe it's 500 pounds of mail, 72 linear feet for standard, 48 for first class. Linear feet, that is. And so you'll come in, you can define any of your pallets here. Of course, this is going to be making a tray-based pallet for me. And then I'm going to go ahead and just say do not create. I know that there's not going to be enough to meet the minimum for a pallet on this one. So I'm going to go ahead and click next after I make sure all my settings are correct here. Here is the intelligent mail settings section. This is very important. This is where you're going to tell the software you are doing a full service mailing. So this checkbox right here, full service intelligent mail, will automatically put in the right service type depending on what you select here. You're going to do an address change or your ACS, that is. I'll just go ahead and leave one code ACS. Your barcode, you can use mailer ID or the mailing agent. If I did, or if I was mailing on behalf of a client, I could come in and define that. Up here we have the IMB Tracing. So this is how you'll utilize the confirm service through the full service at the post office. And it's going to use EasyTrack, or if not, you can unselect EasyTrack and then use your own custom mailer ID in order to track that mail. However, if you do use our EasyTrack, we give you some advanced options. Under the advanced options, you can import or upload contact information, business information, maybe even an account number. That way, when you do look up the mail pieces on individual level, you can quickly find that based off of either their business or if you're uploading an account number to it. This is where you come in to utilize the confirm service. And again, if for full service tracing is not required, so you do not have to trace your mail or use the tracing service from the post office. So if you didn't have a need for that, just simply make sure that's not checked, and it will not apply the appropriate service type or indicator in your mailer ID in order to utilize that service. It's not a requirement for full service, although selecting this option is. So sequencing is very important with full service. You have to have unique sequence numbers for the 45 days, and bulk mailer will handle that for you on a mailer ID and class of mail or class type, standard, flow, first class, etc. And so you'll see that I have automatic turned on and that there's a value in here because I've sorted multiple different times using this mailer ID, and so it's keeping track of that uniqueness for the 45 days for me. I do have the option to override and do a manual. I can have it user-defined field too. If I had my own sequence numbers, I could absolutely bring those in at a individual mailing basis for whatever reason. Maybe you had your own confirmed service that you're using. You can bring that information in. So the minimums to do full service is simply selecting that box and making sure you have automatic on. These are the very minimum requirements to ensure that bulk mailer will produce full service mailings. So to recap here, in the permit information, you all should have a mailer ID and a customer registration ID. You put those two information associated with your permit. You come here, you select this full service intelligent mail, your mail owner, and then you automatically sequence your mail. I'm going to go ahead and click next. I can select service or destination entry discounts here. I'm going to go ahead and click next. I have the metered permit selected, so here's where I can calculate the minimum postage for the meter so I don't have to continue to change my meter. Most of you probably have a permit imprint or other than meter type, so this is an optional screen that you'll only see with a meter permit. Lastly, we get to the intelligent mail container tags. So this is where you're going to tell the software that you're going to produce your intelligent mail barcode container compliant for full service, the tray, pallet tags, etc., or sack tags. What information goes on there? I'm going to go ahead and click next. Again, I can save this as a new template. Let's call it full service webinar and click finish. At this point, it's going to go through sorting my mail and give me my results. You'll notice that I had carrier route, walk sequence as my first level. Well, I didn't have any sequence numbers, so it automatically defaulted to automation and not automation. Down here we have some reports. Again, with full service, these reports are going to be not relevant or not necessary. You can print them for your own reasons. However, we have this submit right here where you can directly submit mail.xml to Postal 1 or mail.dat. I'll go through that here in a second and show you how you can upload to Postal 1 through bulk mailer. So I'm going to go ahead and preview these reports, show you what they look like. This is an unofficial report. This is our mail sort summary report. I'm going to go ahead and click past that to the postage statement. Here's a facsimile of the postage statement. I just saw a question come in. It says, if my mail is resorted, can we keep the original set of sequence numbers for that mail, or does the sequence numbers be put in the manual after the first sort? Very good question, and there is, I'll show you here in a second what happens is, it says, has this mailing been submitted to the post office, yes or no? If you say yes, it will use a new set of unique sequence numbers, or else it will use the sequence numbers that have already been pre-sorted during the pre-sort section. So I'll go ahead and click down past the postage statements here, qualification reports, And then lastly, you get to your container labels. I see there's a lot of questions coming in, and I do apologize for that. I will answer your questions to the best of my ability. I know we're getting down to the last 10 minutes here. If not, I will follow up with email with those as we go through, or after the meeting has been concluded. So the next thing here is the print mail. Here's where I can come in to print my pieces. Due to time constraints, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just open up a number 10 envelope with return address on it and show you what that looks like. So here's the intelligent mail. This one's already been predefined. However, there is a step-by-step intuitive wizard that you could go through that will show you how to define your mail piece, and by just going to the print mail section here. Submit. Here's how you can submit your documentation for the Postal One system. I don't have a login for Postal One at this time. However, the wizard will ask you for your login, your password, and then go through the wizard to upload your electronic documentation directly to the post office. And in EasyTrack, here's how you can utilize the confirm service from the post office in order to track your mail. We have two flavors. We have snapshot, or you can do the complete, which will give you piece level tracking. Lastly, I wanted to talk about the job builder before I concluded and try to answer questions in the last 10 minutes of the session. And so the job builder is a way that I can take all of the things that I've done today and tie those together. So if I have a reoccurring job, what I can do is I can use those templates that I've created throughout the demo today in order to daisy chain those together into a reoccurring job. And so you'll see it in this task, it's creating a mailing. So it's going to generate a brand new mailing. It's going to import a list based off the settings that I have. So this is going to use that template, the demo list, or this would also be referred to as loading plans. So in here it's going to do the cast, it's going to group them, it's going to mail sort, and then it's going to go ahead and print with one of those pre-existing templates. So I'm going to go ahead and just cancel this. And essentially that is bulk mailer. I am going to get into a deeper dive of all of the settings and such on subsequent webinars. However, I wanted to try to get through this one, show you how you can be compliant with full service and the similarities between making that transition from PostalSoft to bulk mailer. So now I'm going to go ahead and go back to the slideshow. Extended resources. So our website is very intuitive, and we have a lot of valuable resources on there. So I wanted to wrap things up today by emphasizing the training and support you'll experience from Satori software. We have, again, two sections in there. We have our support section where you can access live training, express demos that focus on a specific topic, or our tech notes that will walk you through literature-wise how to submit or how to do various things within bulk mailer. And again, you can also submit feature requests through our website. Full service training program. We do have a mastering full service depending on which specific product you have. So if you have our bulk mailer standard, which is limited to 5,000 records per list, per mailing, you could go through the bulk mailer standard training course. Professional, what you've seen on the screen now, you can go through that training course. And then we also have for business. You can go through either one of those, that whatever product best suits your needs. And the best part is, by the time you're done with this training course, you will be full service certified. It walks you through the Postal One, the TIM, which is now optional, but highly recommended, how to submit your mailings all the way from beginning to end. And you can take this at your leisure. There's no time constraints on it. It knows where you're at, so you can stop and come back as needed. Okay, so now we're going to wrap up the meeting. For the last 5 minutes, I'm going to try to get to all your questions. And again, if I skip any of these, I will absolutely follow up with email, or feel free to ping our support with some of these. So let me bring some of these questions out here. Okay, so is there a number of fields? Oh, I've already answered that one. Sorry about that. Where can I get an ID and password? I believe that you're talking about for the Move Update section. The very first time you go through our Move Update or you register for our full service NCOA, you'll have a wizard that will allow you to create your account. There's a couple of different or 3 different types of accounts that you can create. You can have a broker or an admin account, which will allow you to process lists on other people's behalf. So the first time you go through, you'll set up your account information in your account. Then every other time you can go through, you can create new client accounts, or you can process lists based off of a client list. So if you have, let's say, 10 clients, and you have them all entered into the Move Update wizard, you can simply just click on that customer's name and process a list on their behalf, and the corresponding path and NCOA link paperwork will correspond and qualify you for the full service certification. Does Move Update automatically do a duplication search? The answer to that is no. You have to go through the duplication search itself, and at that point, I think I demonstrated that here. So I ran the NCOA part, and I was asked a lot of questions regarding my client information. I don't see the screen that come up where when you ran it, I need more explanation on this. And again, the first time you go through the NCOA wizard, it'll ask you to enter in your client information or your information, and then each subsequent time after that, the software will remember, and you'll have your path on file as well as your client's path. How do I find my ID Alliance access code? Very good question. So if you don't have your ID Alliance or your access code, you want to contact our either sales department or our support department, and we can generate you one of those free of charge. What if I don't need to track my client's mail? Can I skip that? Absolutely. You just don't check that box. Do we need to run a test submit for eDoc for each permit we use mail under? The test environment for mailers has been deemed optional. However, during the full service certification, we highly recommend or strongly recommend that you go through that in order to ensure you're not missing any steps. However, our software has been full service certified, so you can be assured that if you have all the settings correct in bulk mailer, you're going to be able to pass your address correction. I'm sorry, your full service requirements from the post office. What happens when we are printing the job and at the end it's short? What do we do about submissions to the post office? Good question. In the past, you were able just to modify your physical postage statements. Well, at this point, you have to use some type of a mail.dat editing software. And Satori Software's answer to that is we have Monticello software, which is a mail.dat editing software, which will allow you to not only account for spoilages and shortages, it'll also allow you to do multiple day releases of that mail. If you haven't got everything out, it'll do partial releases. It can do any of the mail.dat editing that you need, such as you need to increase the piece thickness. It wasn't thick enough. Maybe all your pieces aren't fitting in a tray, you need to create a new tray. Anything that happens on the production floor, Monticello will be able to accommodate for. Another good question, is the bulk mailer standard about the same as the professional and how I did the demonstration today? And the answer is yes. Bulk mailer standard, professional, and our business edition all have the very similar and same approach to full service. So all those settings that you've seen me go through are the same in all flavors of the software. The difference is the capability, such as standards, only 5,000 pieces per mailing. Professional doesn't have a limit, and then the business has the network capability. How do I change tray amounts on a mailing that's been submitted when your trays don't match the paperwork? It says there should be answer to that. Any of the production floor changes that happen from Presort, you'll want to use a mail.dat editing software. And there are a few available out there. Again, Satori's answer is Monticello. How do I get, or how do I select alternative address formatting when using or current resident, or current as the second line in our address? That is a very good question. You can print that directly on the mail piece through the print mail section or our label designer. We have the ability to print static text on there. We do have complete sessions and learning videos on our support site that will allow you to walk through and learn how to do that. It looks like we're at the top of the hour now, so I'm going to have to conclude the meeting. However, if you want to keep your questions coming, please do. I will do my best to answer them. And any of the questions that don't get answered in a timely fashion, please feel free to reach out to our support department, and they will be able to answer them in detail. Also, if you could please take a second to take the short survey at the end of this webinar. We appreciate your feedback, and any of your feedback helps me deliver a better webinar to you in the future. And again, there will be more advanced sessions coming in the next few weeks, so please stay tuned for those as well. And thank you all for joining today's session. Have a great day.